So my girls were 2 and 5 at the time, playing out on the back deck on a really hot summer day. Suddenly, they came bursting into the kitchen, singing a Sesame Street song and giggling and toddling around the kitchen. It was just one of those sweet moments that just made me smile. But then suddenly I noticed that something was weird. I looked down at the floor, the white tiles of my kitchen floor, and I noticed a messy array of little tiny black footprints where they had been dancing. My first reaction, I will admit, was, oh shoot. I'm a busy mom. I have my own accounting practice. The last thing I wanted to do was clean the floor again. But then I started to think, what's on their feet? So I followed the little path outside, and I looked at the back deck, and it was weird. It was completely covered with a thick layer of black soot. Now this was strange to me. I lived in Marblehead at the time. There was no industry that I knew of in town that would be responsible for such a thing. I mentioned it to my dad, who was born and raised in Salem, right next community, and he didn't hesitate for a second. He pointed to the coal-burning power plant in Salem and said, "It's only a mile away as the crow flies. I bet that's your culprit." So at that moment, I knew I had a lot to learn. Monday, I picked up the phone and I called the plant. A very pleasant PR person took the call, and she assured me there was nothing to worry about, and she would send somebody over. Now, I appreciated being taken seriously, but something in her delivery indicated to me that she had heard this before. Took about a month, and an insurance adjuster showed up at my house. He pressed little pieces of Scotch tape into the soot, rolled it up in glass vials, and shipped it off to the lab. Another month later, a letter arrived. Dear Mrs. Ehrlich, we have determined that the soot on your deck could be from us. Because of our Good Neighbor program, we're willing to power wash your deck for you, free of charge, free. But before we do that, release us from liability. Sign here. I stood there holding that letter, and I realized at that moment that they really missed my point. It was never about the deck. I didn't care about the deck. I cared about what was on their little feet. And what are we breathing all the time? And who's gonna power wash our lungs? You know, I wasn't looking for a bribe. I just wanted them to stop polluting my family. And because this was a Good Neighbor program, I knew I wasn't alone. So it was time to find my neighbors. So I decided to write a letter to the local newspaper, letter to the editor, and in it I included my phone number. My phone rang off the hook for a good 2 weeks. I heard terrible stories. I heard stories of people worried about cancer clusters, especially downwind from this plant. The plant itself had been there since 1952 and had never bothered to install scrubbers on their stacks that would filter the emissions. I heard stories of dump trucks that would come around to the neighborhoods full of coal waste, offering it up as free fill. You could fill it into your garden, you could fill it into your yard, all free. I also learned that this Good Neighbor program would routinely clean houses, cars, and would even detail boats in the harbor for free. How could this go on for so long? I wrote down all these stories in a big yellow pad, and I took the pad and I closed it, I pushed it to the back of my desk, and I cried. How could this go on for so long? My husband Bruce and I talked about maybe relocating or moving out of the community, but we ultimately decided, you know, this is our home. This is our community. we're not going to run. The plant should leave. So once we decided to fight, it was time for action. My very first action that I took, I called the power plant and I told them to shove their Good Neighbor program. And you know what? It felt amazing. But then the hard work began. I knew I couldn't do this by myself. So I took the yellow pad, I pulled it forward, and I started to flip through and call everybody. So we started to meet in coffee shops. We met in living rooms. I started an email group, and soon enough, we started to grow. And we named ourselves HealthLink, which is a great name. And as soon as we started to be successful, the company that owned the power plant, a company named PG&E, which is Pacific Gas and Electric of California, they started to get a little nervous. So they did everything they could to discredit us. They tried to convince people that if we were successful, the lights would go out. They told people that we were hysterical housewives. Well, I know I wasn't hysterical. I was exhausted. I was anxious. I was really pissed off. I had not slept in months. The kids were living on macaroni and cheese. My tax clients were all on extension. And I actually had to get accustomed to being verbally attacked in public meetings and in the press. And on my worst days, or day, really, I needed a bodyguard. So then all of a sudden, the Harvard School of Public Health released a study that validated everything. The Harvard School of Public Health study indicated that 181 people would die every year from the pollution from that plant and one other in Massachusetts, and thousands of people would be sickened. Now, studies can be abstract, and PG&E did all they could to paint the study as complete garbage. So my friend Lisa and I decided one day that we need to make this real for people. So we went out and we bought a giant roll of black paper. From this paper, we cut out 181 sort of Keith Haring style body cutouts, and we outlined them all with white chalk. We placed these cutouts, 181 of them, in front of PG&E's headquarters in Boston. And this was with a whole bunch of HealthLink people. We had a sandwich board that explained all the details of the Harvard study. It was such a powerful image, and it actually, at the time, it's the equivalent of going viral. It actually got national attention. Around the same time, I learned that there was this incredible woman out in California with a funny name named Erin Brockovich, who had also taken on PG&E successfully out there. Now, the movie hadn't come out yet, so I picked up the phone and I called her. And you know, she is just as badass and tenacious as as Julia Roberts played her in the movie. We decided to team up, and she was a great ally, and really just somebody that really helped us sort out testing and everything. But soon in the press, I was labeled the East Coast Erin Brockovich, as you heard. I'm still not entirely comfortable with that name, but I watched how it propelled our cause forward, and I was grateful for that. And then I discovered that a once pristine drinking water supply for 80,000 people was contaminated by this power plant with 5 to 6 feet of coal waste at its base. This is a whole other story, but I led the 6-year cleanup for that drinking water supply. And then, this went on for over a decade. And then finally, I gave up my accounting practice. And I decided I wanted to be in the room where the decisions are made. So I ran for office, and I won. And one night, while I was in a late night session, my phone rang. Now, the power plant had recently had an explosion that actually killed 3 workers, and still the plant, that stupid plant, would not shut down. So this call came in when I was in the State House, and it was a reporter I had worked with from the very beginning. And he said, "You're not going to believe this, but the plant just announced that it's closing." So I hung up the phone, I exhaled. The battle was over. And sure enough, in 2014, I was able to witness and cheer as the plant was demolished. So, yeah, thanks. So, you know, when I think back about those little footprints in that trail that I followed, I really sometimes just can't believe it. You know, we not only shut down a power plant, but we found our voices. And, you know, we found each other. And you know what? We found out something else. We were the ones we were waiting for. Thank you very much.